You're listening to This Place from Oregon Humanities. Each week, we ask Oregonians about the places that matter to them. This week, we hear from Paul Susi at Lone Fir Cemetery in Portland.
Lone Fir Cemetery is between 20th and 28th in Southeast, between Stark and Morrison. It's a tiny little cemetery that is in the middle of the rapidly gentrified Southeast Portland, inner Southeast Portland. We're surrounded by apartment buildings and small shops, some busy commuter streets and bus lines around us. But this little plot of land, well, it's about 8 city blocks worth of land, and it's rolling hills and tall fir trees and pine trees and some oaks and other flowering things. Lots of flowering weeds and wildflowers. It's a beautiful little cemetery. Lone Fir Cemetery is a cross-section of Portland's historic legacies. There's the founders of the city, or some of the first pioneering patriarchs and matriarchs of the city. There's historical figures, people who founded hospitals and firefighters and firefighter chiefs and all kinds of notables. And there are almost 2,000 unmarked graves of Chinese migrant laborers, and in some cases their families, and also several hundred unmarked graves of inmates of the Hawthorne Asylum, Portland's first asylum for the mentally ill, founded by Dr. Hawthorne, who is also buried here. So there's just quite a few legacies of Portland's founding times buried here at this cemetery. Some are being lionized with beautiful monuments that are crumbling, and then some are absolutely forgotten. Their monuments have been erased, literally removed from their tombs, even though they are still here. I've lived in this neighborhood for almost 20-odd years now. I grew up here in Portland. Actually, my grandparents lived a couple of blocks away. And I'd always been able to walk through this cemetery kind of as a park space, even though it's always been a historic pioneer cemetery. But it's open to the public. Folks can walk around and stroll with their dogs and their families. So I've always been curious about this place. And then I came to find out about the legacy of the several thousand, 2,000 unmarked Chinese graves here. My grandmother was ethnic Chinese, and even though I was born here, all of my families are from overseas. I still feel a kind of kinship with the folks who are forgotten here. So only recently, only in the last 15 years or so, have folks started paying attention to the unmarked graves here, and there are all kinds of plans to commemorate and create monuments that will take years to build. But one of my biggest fears about the new monuments that they're planning for this space is that it would just become a target of racist vandalism and vitriol. There's no way to counter that. There's no way to plan for that effectively, other than to fence everything off, and I don't think that that's a good solution either. But even if those monuments are rebuilt and replaced, there's something really powerful about this space that can't really be healed. This is all stolen land. Everything here has been appropriated from someone or other cultures. It's not that I feel like all of these graves need to be in some way shamed or held accountable, but I think that story needs to be better told here. My attention is focused on these 2,000 unmarked graves, but I suspect that even if these graves were marked, this wouldn't necessarily be a place of peace or rest. This would be a place of concern and of grief and of mourning and loss. And we as a community don't have a way of addressing that grief and that loss without fear and without anger and rage. And that's the conversation that I wish that our communities were better able to have right now.
That was Paul Susi in Portland. You've been listening to This Place from Oregon Humanities.